Remember when games ran well? It used to be that when you popped in your game's cartridge or CD disc, you were always guaranteed a certain standard of performance. This was back when physical copies did more than just store a license key. Nowadays, instead of playing right away, you're expected to sit and wait for your game to download itself.
Even though we've put the physical disc in, it is doing a full 102.614GB download off of PlayStation Network.
Then compile shaders and optimize your experience just for the game to still run like shit.
You'll be walking along and the game will say this. Now what are you gonna do about that?
It hasn't always been this way, and I'm gonna show you now how video game performance has gradually declined. Travelling back to the era of box TVs, at least 2 decades ago, video games ran at a standard definition of 640 by 480p and would get a maximum of 30 frames per second. Just in case, I'll briefly explain that 640 times 480 represents the number of pixels in your screen, with more pixels generally meaning better quality of image. 30 frames per second you can think of like a sketchpad. The faster you're able to flick through the images, the smoother the movement is, and the higher number of frames per second, the smoother the gameplay is. In both cases, the greater the number, the better the quality. But by modern standards, 480p is actually pretty low. That being said, this performance was standardized. It didn't really matter what game you played, whether you were soaring through the skies in Mario 64 or collecting the little puzzle pieces in Banjo-Kazooie. Most often, it was pretty indiscernible if one of these games suffered with performance issues when compared to the next. Actually, if we did ever find a game that would frequently crash or run improperly, without a second thought, we'd have taken the game back to the store and expected to receive a full refund for our troubles. I can personally attest to spending countless of my hours installing driver updates or following community-made guides, fixing problems that some random Reddit user figured out how to resolve, rather than the multi-million-dollar company that was paid to make the damn game. So where did it start going wrong? Roughly a decade after games like Mario 64, the whole industry took a giant leap forward in quality by offering us 720p and soon after 1080p resolutions of gameplay. In order to account for this, new video games consoles were designed and distributed to overcome older hardware constraints of the previous era of gaming. PC games moved away from the tycoons and simulations to actually receiving decent ports of video games previously only playable on home entertainment consoles. I remember initially playing games like Terraria and Minecraft on my dad's old work laptop, where I would pull about an inconsistent 15 frames per second, building my first dirt house like it was a class presentation on Microsoft PowerPoint. For the most part, the video games industry still heavily relied on video games consoles, like the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. This was because most people didn't really have a powerful enough laptop to run things on at the time, and decent gaming PCs weren't really a thing because the Xbox One didn't yet scare people into PC gaming, which only happened by 2015. Predominantly, the main issue of the time was console fail rates, with a large number of Xbox arcades breaking down within just a couple of years from that dreaded ring of death. Thankfully, my first Xbox was the 360 Elite, so I got to fully enjoy the golden age of Xbox Online multiplayer.
Man, shut the fuck up. You probably wear a fucking Black Ops shirt to school with your light up Skechers looking ass.
During this time, even bad games ran perfectly well. I never used to question the performance of my old Xbox games because they all ran at a pretty consistent 30 frames per second. It's almost as if the games were properly tested for and developed with current gen hardware in mind. Ever since 2015, all we've been hearing about is next-gen this or 4K that. Have you ever wondered why we're always being sold on the promise of a next-gen that never seems to arrive? It's because games are no longer made for current gen in mind. It used to be that video games were developed for consoles that are already out, with the idea being that if it runs well on devices that people already own, more people will be immediately able and more likely to play it. This benefited third-party games developers and consumers alike, fostering healthy competition across all gaming platforms while delivering games that were made to fit the industry. But that's all in the past now. These days, the industry shapes itself around game requirements. Newer titles release purposely designed to run improperly on current hardware, thereby driving future games console sales. You don't believe me? Ask yourself, why do you think most people are going to be buying the Nintendo Switch 2? I can personally say I'm wanting to play the games that I already own, just at higher and more stable frame rates, like Breath of the Wild. This game game was originally released in 2017 and had severe frame drops, well, in 2025, just 8 years later, you're finally going to be able to play it at a consistent 60 frames per second, which has supposedly been the industry standard now for at least the last decade. Making matters worse, games companies expect us to pay more money to rebuy the games that we already own, just so they can be optimized to run marginally better on their extortionately priced newer games consoles. That's not even considering the laughable attempts to patch and optimize a modern day release against the dozen or so gaming platforms which they're desperate for it to run on in order to maximize their bloody sales. You want to know why games performance in the industry sucks now? It's so they can keep selling you on the promise of a next gen, a standard of gaming that should already exist but is constantly pushed back.